this is Kelly with Kellyscards.ca, and I'm so glad that everyone is here to join me for this second card series. This is the July card series, and again this series is going to have 6 cards. For our first card I have picked out a Western theme, and to start this out I've got a black card base, a brown piece of pattern paper for the mat. I've picked out a nice striped tone to add some color variance, as well as some layering of a scallop circle die and this lovely horse image, which works really well with the papers. Also, I have got this nice little sentiment which I made on MS Word, and it says "Howdy Partner." I also have this cork arrow, and I will also be using some brown embroidery thread. A lot of people like to use twine. I find that all of this embroidery thread is available in so many colors and it's not as expensive. You can buy it everywhere. So I've started changing into using the embroidery thread opposed to just regular twine. So let's start putting this together. Distress ink, the vintage photo, most people's favorite brown ink, and I'm just going to ink the edges. So I'm just using a Ranger, the circle die applicator. I just switched from the square applicators to the circle ones, and I find it way easier to use, especially on stencils. I find it puts the ink on better. So we'll just go across the end, or the edges, all the way around, just like so. And I'm also going to do this stripe piece, just like that, all the way around. Get rid of those white edges on the side. And now I'm going to adhere first thing this to this, and I'm just going to use a little tape runner here on the edges. And I'm going to try to place this closer to this side, to the right side. Just like that. Now if you have any extra, you can just cut off the edge. This seems pretty good to me. So I'm just going to rub that on there to make sure it stays on there. In a mail card, because this is, you could definitely give this as a mail card. Anything in the Western theme with the browns and that definitely could be a more mail toned card. You're not going to put as much like flourishes and stuff like that. So I love twine because it's an easy accent. So I'm just going to start with a little edge up here. I'm going to go around once, twice, 3 times, and then I'm going to tie it, and then I'm going to make a bow. And this is always the tricky part, is making the bow. There we go. Once make the bow, I'm going to hold the knot and I'm going to pull each of the tails to tighten up the knot. By holding on to the knot, then this won't get loose. It will all stay tight. So that's a good tip for those of you who want to make bows. Just hang on to your push some pressure onto your knot and then just pull your tails. So we're not going to cut them just yet, just in case that bow comes undone. So now we can still move it around. If you see, if you curve your paper, you can still move your bow, and then you can place it exactly where you want it. And I'm going to place mine about here. And I really like that in this particular stripe sheet there's a dark piece here, and then with this it kind of goes together. So now that I have my embroidery thread on there, now I will adhere this piece to the card base. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little score tape. It's my favorite adhesive, and we're just going to go around the edges just like so. And then when I use twine, I like to just put a piece on the middle just to hold it in place. So now we're going to take this off just like so. And once we get it off, we're going to open the card base just so we can lay it nice and flat. And we're going to be able to put this down. Again, making sure that our bow is exactly where we want it and that our adhesive is tucked under. And we're going to place and make sure it's nice and straight. You have a little bit of wiggle room there to make sure it's straight. And now that that is exactly where we want it, we'll pull out this other tail and we will just arrange it so the bow's a little bit more correct. So now that we've done that, we've got our base done, let's move on to adhering the image. For adhering the image, I'm just going to use a little tape runner and go around the outside, place it on top of the scallop, and then I'm going to rub it. Make sure it really is adhered. Now this circle die that I used is a Spellbinders die, and so is the scallop one. So they layer nicely. So you can have your image cut with a circle, and then you can decorate it on a black mat or a different colored mat just to help it pop from the base of the card. So now that we've got our horse done, we're going to use some pop dots just to pop up the image. So we're just going to add some of these pop dots. I like to add one in the middle and then 4 or 5 around the outside, depending on how big the circle is. And then once I've got that, I'm going to place my horse about there. And then what I'm going to do is everybody will have a flower and a brad in their kit. This is the one that happens to be for here. I'm going to adhere this flower with some hot glue. I like to use hot glue. I know I mention this quite often, but the hot glue on top of the brads, that way the brad doesn't stick through paper, you don't have, it's not going to rub and wreck the rest of your card, and it looks good and it sticks really well. So now that we have the flower, we're going to get to the sentiment. You can distress your sentiment. It'll match the rest of the card, or you can leave it plain. And again, we're using the vintage photo. So now we're just going to adhere this, and I really don't want this one to come off, so I'm going to use the score tape again, just because sometimes little pieces don't stick well with the tape runner. And again, we're just going to pull the backing off. And now you'll receive a piece of black cardstock to mat. There we are. So we've got that, and I would really like to place it here. So I'm going to do that too, and I would like to use pop dots for that. I think having the sentiment also stick out a little bit will be good. You can adhere it flat, but it helps to use the pop dots when you're adhering over the twine. So we're just going to get this like that. And then I have this cork arrow, and I'll link to what this is. I can't remember exactly what company it is. I don't know why I'm thinking Kaiser Craft, but I will link to this. And this is just a little cork arrow, and I thought it would look really, really cute. And for the last piece of this particular card, you're going to receive this gold die cut horseshoe. And I thought it would be really neat to kind of thread it through the bow embroidery thread. Okay, so now that we've got that, we're just going to have the bow there and the little tails. I've just adhered the horseshoe just like that, and it's just on the edge of the thread. So I'm just going to cut my tails now, just like so. And there we are. And that completes the card. But I think this is a really great, not only Western card, but again, a mail card, something playful. I will link to this die that I used to cut this, the circle dies, as well as this arrow. So I hope you enjoyed this first card of 6 cards in this series. Please stay tuned for those that are coming up soon. And thank you so much for joining me. Again, it's Kellyscards.ca if you want to check out my website, and thanks for stopping by.